I want to talk about the Diddy case and an example of how prosecutors often overcharge. And I think the Diddy case was a perfect example. And I'm sure you've seen it in the news. I know you know about the case from the news, but have you seen the result? And the result was that he was found not guilty on some charges and guilty on others. And that is a common outcome in trials. And it happens for a few reasons. One is that sometimes jurors, when they're in the back, can't decide on whether somebody's guilty or innocent, maybe, or guilty or not guilty. And they can't come to an agreement. So they'll split and say, okay, we'll find him guilty of these charges and not guilty of that. Jurors are not supposed to do that. It happens, but that's not really how it's supposed to work. If you really believe someone's guilty, you're not supposed to give up that belief. If you really believe someone's not guilty, you're not supposed to give up that belief either. Okay? But another way, and I think this is what happened in the Diddy case, is that the prosecutors overcharge people. And oftentimes, at least in the state level, now Diddy was a federal case, but in the state level, the prosecutors will overcharge, meaning maybe somebody's guilty of X, but they charge them with Y and Z. Why they do that is Y and Z normally carry more significant sentencing ranges and harsher penalties. So they leverage that. They try to put the weight of the government on this person to have them plead guilty, and they'll probably offer a plea to these lower charges. But what can happen is you go to trial and the defense can argue, look, they don't even know what they believe in. If they can't prove this beyond reasonable doubt, how are they going to prove that, right? It can go both ways. But I think the Diddy case is a perfect example of that. He was found guilty of the lesser stuff, not of the higher stuff. And it's important. It's an important lesson. Don't always believe what you see in the news. Like, this guy is definitely not a good dude. He's definitely guilty of some of this stuff. But it's a good example, broader. When you hear somebody in the news charged with a crime, ask yourself and think critically, hey, was this charged appropriately? Do I believe what the government is saying? Because the government is controlling this media narrative, right? They're releasing the statements to the local papers. In Coweta, for instance, when the paper runs that somebody got arrested, they're getting that statement directly from the sheriff's office. And even if it's a report, it's right from the sheriff's office. It's completely one-sided. We don't ever get asked about our side of the case, okay? So just an important lesson in, one, what jurors are going through and what they're supposed to do, and that prosecutors can't overcharge cases. And I encourage you to think critically when you hear about those stories.